All right, diving in today, and this one is actually a direct request from one of you guys out there listening.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, it was someone really wanting to understand, I guess, the significance of Surah Al-Mulk from the Quran.
Okay, a great choice.
Yeah, so I mean, I think it was I'm trying to remember exactly what the wording was, but they really wanted to, like, I don't know, get a handle on it.
Got to get in depth.
Yeah, quickly and thoroughly. Kind of a tall order, but but I think we can at least take a good stab at it.
Absolutely.
Right. So we're going to kind of go into the details, the history, some of the merits, the benefits that people associate with this particular surah.
Yeah, and I think that for folks maybe just getting acquainted with the Quran, it might be helpful to know that Surah Al-Mulk is also referred to as Tabakalazi Biyadihil Mulk.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's simply because those are the opening words of the surah, so it's kind of adopted that title as well.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
Yeah.
So I guess to kick things off, like, what is this surah? Where does it sit within the Quran? How big is it? Kind of set the stage.
Right. So Surah Al-Mulk is the 67th chapter of the Quran.
Okay, 67th.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it comprises 30 verses, which are known as ayat. And significantly, it was revealed in Mecca
Oh,
during the early period of the Prophet Muhammad's, peace be upon him, prophethood.
okay. So that makes it a Maki surah, right?
That is correct.
Meaning it was revealed before the migration to Medina.
Precisely.
Right. Okay, so we've got that early Meccan flavor to it.
Absolutely.
Now, the name itself, Al-Mulk, what does that mean? And how does that play into the themes we see in this chapter?
Yeah, so Al-Mulk translates to sovereignty or dominion.
Okay.
And this name immediately points to the central theme of the surah.
Okay, so dominion, sovereignty, we're talking about.
We're talking about Allah's absolute power and authority over all of creation.
Right. It's not just about ruling, it's about ownership, right?
Exactly. It's about the fact that he owns and controls everything.
And how does the surah actually go about conveying this idea? Like, what are some of the key messages or arguments that are put forward to make this point?
Well, the surah repeatedly emphasizes that Allah is the owner of the heavens and the earth, everything that exists between them. He's the creator, the sustainer, the one who holds everything in perfect order.
So it's really drilling down on this idea of creation, ownership, everything coming from this one source.
Exactly. And it connects this idea with the remembrance of the hereafter.
Okay, now when we say the hereafter, what are we talking about?
We're talking about the afterlife, paradise, hell, the consequences of our actions in this life.
Okay, right. So like Judgment Day and everything that comes after that.
Precisely.
So what's the connection then between Allah's sovereignty and the hereafter? Like, how does the surah bring those two ideas together?
Well, it frequently mentions Jannah, which is paradise, and Jahan, which is hell. And these mentions serve as a reminder to the reader that their actions in this life have consequences in the next.
It's like it's giving you that context, right?
Exactly. It's saying, remember who's in control. Remember that your actions have meaning and consequence.
Okay, so it's kind of like that blend of, there's this higher power, there's this ultimate reality, but then there's also this element of individual responsibility.
Absolutely. And that's where the concept of human responsibility really comes into play in this surah.
Okay, so let's talk about that. How does the surah address human responsibility in light of Allah's sovereignty?
Well, it emphasizes that we've been given countless blessings by Allah, and in return, we're expected to be grateful for those blessings and avoid disobedience to Him.
It's like a reciprocal relationship almost.
Exactly. It's about recognizing the source of all good and responding with gratitude and obedience.
Now, thinking about the historical context, we mentioned that this was revealed in Mecca, right? And this was during the early years of Islam.
That's right. A very crucial period.
Yeah, so what was the situation like back then for the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and his followers?
It was a time of great opposition.
Okay, so like widespread acceptance, or was it more of a struggle?
Oh, it was definitely a struggle. The majority of the people in Mecca rejected the message of Islam.
Wow.
And the early Muslims faced a lot of persecution, hardship, even violence.
So in that kind of environment, a surah focusing on Allah's ultimate power, how did that resonate with those early Muslims?
Well, I think it served as a tremendous source of strength and comfort.
Okay, so like amidst all this chaos and opposition, this was a reminder of...
It was a reminder that Allah was in control, that despite the challenges they were facing, ultimately He held the reins.
It's giving them that bigger picture perspective.
Exactly. And it instilled in them this sense of hope and resilience.
Okay, so it's like Even though things are tough right now, there's a greater plan at play.
Absolutely. And that truth would ultimately prevail.
Now, moving on, let's talk about some of the virtues, the fadhil, associated with Surah Al-Mulk.
Okay, so we're getting into some of the, I guess, the rewards and benefits.
Yeah, exactly. Like, what are some of the things that are promised or said to come from engaging with this surah?
Well, one of the most prominent virtues is its potential for intercession on the Day of Judgment.
Now, what do we mean by intercession for people who might not be familiar with that term?
So intercession basically means that someone will plead on your behalf.
Okay.
And in this case, there's a hadith, which is a narration of the prophet's sayings or actions. And it's reported in Tirmidhi, a very well-respected collection of hadith, that Surah Al-Mulk will actually intercede for the person who recites it regularly.
Okay, so the surah itself is gonna...
It will plead for them to be saved from the punishment of hellfire.
Wow, so that's a pretty powerful stuff.
It's a very powerful concept, and it provides a lot of hope and encouragement for believers.
So you're literally being advocated for by this surah.
Exactly.
That's amazing.
And there are other rewards and benefits as well.
Okay, what else is out there?
Well, another hadith mentions a great reward for the person who recites Surah Al-Mulk before sleeping every night.
Okay, so it's specifically tied to that nighttime recitation.
Yes, and there's also a strong emphasis on protection.
Protection from...
From Satan, from evil influences, from any kind of harm.
So it's kind of like a shield, almost.
Exactly. Reciting this surah is seen as a way of seeking Allah's protection in your life.
Okay, now shifting gears a bit, let's talk about some of the more practical benefits, the fawaid of reading Surah Al-Mulk. Like, how does it impact people's lives in a tangible way?
Sure. So building on that idea of salvation, regular recitation is believed to lead to deliverance from hellfire in the afterlife.
Right, so that kind of ultimate salvation.
Yes, but it also has benefits in this life as well.
Okay, like what?
Well, many people find that reading Surah Al-Mulk brings them a sense of peace and tranquility.
Like inner peace, calmness.
Exactly. It connects them with Allah's mercy and compassion in a very real way.
So it's not just this abstract concept, it's something they can experience in their day-to-day lives.
Absolutely. And furthermore, reciting it or even displaying it in one's home is said to bring Allah's blessings into that space.
Okay, so it's kind of imbuing the space with this positive energy.
Right. And it can also provide strength and support when facing difficulties.
So like when you're going through tough times, it can be a source of...
It can be a source of comfort, of resilience, of reminding yourself that Allah is with you.
That's really interesting. So it's kind of like a multifaceted approach to benefits. You know, there's the spiritual, there's the emotional, there's even that sense of physical space being impacted.
Exactly. It's a very holistic understanding of how this surah can influence our lives.
Now, for someone listening who's thinking, okay, I want to start incorporating this surah into my life, are there recommended times or ways to read it?
Yes, there are some key recommendations.
Okay, let's hear them.
So reciting it before going to sleep at night is a very common practice.
Okay, so that nighttime recitation again.
Exactly. It's considered a sunnah, a practice of the Prophet, peace be upon him.
Right, so it's not obligatory, but it's highly encouraged.
Precisely. And it's seen as a way of seeking Allah's protection during sleep.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
Another recommended time is after performing the daily prayers, the salah.
Okay, so after you've completed your prayers.
Yes, that's considered a time of heightened spirituality. And reciting Surah Al-Mulk then is believed to bring additional reward and continued peace of mind.
It's like maintaining that connection, that flow.
Exactly. And as we mentioned before, reciting it aloud in the home or even writing it down and displaying it respectfully. That's another way to seek Allah's blessings for the entire household.
So it's like, you know, having that constant reminder, that constant presence.
Absolutely. And it all comes back to this idea of consistent engagement with the surah.
Yeah, so it's not just about reading it once, it's about incorporating it into your routine, your daily life.
Exactly. And allowing its message to really sink in and impact your heart and your actions.
Yeah. Right. So we've covered a lot of ground here, you know, from the basics of what the surah is to its history, its themes, the virtues, the benefits.
It's a very rich and layered surah.
Yeah. So if you were to kind of sum it all up, you know, what are the key takeaways? What do you want our listeners to walk away with from this deep dive?
Well, I think the core message of Surah Al-Mulk is the affirmation of Allah's absolute power and sovereignty over all creation.
That seems to be the recurring theme, right?
Absolutely. It's the foundation upon which everything else is built.
And then from there, we get into that idea of the hereafter, right? Accountability, consequences.
Exactly. It reminds us that our actions in this life have meaning and will be judged.
Right, so it's not just about this worldly existence, there's a bigger picture.
Precisely. And it's a call to live our lives with a sense of purpose and responsibility.
And then we also talked about how the surah was revealed in a time of great adversity for the early Muslims.
Yes, a very challenging period.
And it served as this source of strength, of hope, of resilience.
Absolutely. It reminded them that no matter how difficult things got, Allah was ultimately in control.
So it's like a historical example of how the surah can provide comfort and support in times of need.
Exactly. And then there are all the virtues and benefits associated with it.
Right, intercession, protection, inner peace.
All of these things point to the transformative power of engaging with this surah on a regular basis.
It's not just about reading words on a page, it's about internalizing those words and allowing them to shape your life.
Absolutely. And I think it's important to remember that the wisdom and guidance contained in Surah Al-Mulk are universal.
Right, it's not limited to just Muslims, it's something that anyone can benefit from.
Exactly. The themes it addresses, the nature of power, the consequences of our choices, the importance of gratitude, these are all concepts that resonate with humanity as a whole.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Surah Al-Mulk, I want to leave you with this thought, something to really ponder.
Okay, let's hear it.
Given the immensity of Allah's power and sovereignty described in this surah, how might reflecting on these concepts influence our daily actions and the way we view the world around us?
That's a powerful question.
Yeah, how does recognizing this higher power, this greater purpose, how does that change the way we approach our lives, the choices we make, the way we interact with others?
It's about aligning ourselves with that greater reality, with that understanding of where true power and control lie.
Exactly, and it's an ongoing process, something we can strive for every day.
Absolutely. It's a journey of growth and understanding.
So thank you for joining us for this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure exploring this with you.
And until next time, keep seeking, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.
And peace be upon you.
Peace.